Hi, this is Zoe.
And this is Justina.
And this is the Empowered Healing Podcast.
All right, we are back.
Yeah, welcome back. Today we're diving into a topic that is both fascinating and I think deeply relevant to our world at large today.
Absolutely. We are going to talk about cults today.
Cults and the role that misinformation plays in shaping our beliefs, our relationships, overall mental well-being. I think like last time we talked about, we live in an age of overwhelming information all the time.
All the time.
And the thing with that is not all of it's trustworthy. So how do some groups use that to manipulate, control, and trap people? I think, obviously the constant misinformation means that misinformation is just as accessible.
Yeah. We talked a ton about misinformation last time, so thinking about how that misinformation really isolates people.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of times when I think about a cult, we just think about maybe intense fan groups or, people who have drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's so much more than that.
It is so much more than that. Yeah. So let's start with talking about what it is actually. What is a cult?
Yeah. So cults are often high control environments. They're usually built around some sort of charismatic leader or rigid ideology. We see that a lot. And obviously, they use tactics of some kind that exploit their members, that isolate them and manipulate them into keeping with the goals of the cult.
Yeah. When thinking about a cult, I always envision this charismatic leader, like the person who is the central authoritarian type of figure that they do no wrong.
Yeah. Oftentimes there's an almost prophetic nature to them.
Yeah.
That they are omniscient. They know everything.
They are the people who know the truth.
Yep. The sole truth.
The sole truth. The only truth. They know the way.
Any other truth is wrong. Does not exist.
Yeah. So members are not allowed to question, and they very rarely do when they're so deeply in it. They don't question that truth.
Yeah, and it's tricky because at the beginning, there's not really this... Most people don't know that they're actively joining a cult.
Right.
The manipulation is so subtle, and it's this gradual indoctrination. You're drawn in, usually, some sort of community or cause, something that feels personal to you, that speaks to some need that you have.
Yeah.
And so it fits that niche. And every time you're so entangled in it emotionally, socially, sometimes financially. That you don't necessarily see it.
Yeah. And then building on that into the belief of us versus them, that outsiders are dangerous, people who don't think the way that we do are dangerous.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I feel like one of the big tactics with cults at first is that language of specific language to a cult.
Yeah.
Okay, this is our language, this is what we say. People on the outside are different.
Yeah. They don't quite get us.
Yeah, and that feels special at first.
Yeah, absolutely. And lots of them love bomb, just like you would in a relationship. You are going to be so great here. We are so welcoming. We're bringing you in.
Yeah. I think that's totally right. And that a lot of times it feels super positive at the beginning. Wow, this seems like a really great community.
Yeah.
They seem to meet my needs. They seem very compassionate and kind, and that I feel important here.
These are my people.
Yeah.
And then leading into that isolation piece.
Yeah, where your circle starts to get smaller. Maybe you start pulling away from people who don't believe in your ideology, people who've questioned or have come from a place of concern. Okay, maybe these people aren't, they don't belong with, this group. They're not people I should be involved with.
Right. They don't believe in this, so I can't have them in my life.
Yeah, it's detrimental to upholding the ideologies.
Yeah. And that makes it hard to maintain any type of relationship outside of the group.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it gets to a point where, like, the group is your only source of community. You've more or less cut off and burned bridges with everyone else as a result of being a part of it.
Yeah. Well, and when folks leave or start questioning the group or the group leader, it really leads to a lot of shaming, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt. Sometimes even like retaliatory measures of you're going to be punished if you do something against this group or if you leave the group.
Yeah. And talking bad about them to everyone.
Absolutely.
Anyone who will listen.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is tough.
Yeah.
It is. So, those are some of the ways, obviously, that a cult differs from just a really loyal group or a community. What are some other ways that make it different?
Yeah, so when I think about a cult or some other high-controlling environment versus maybe a healthy community, healthy communities allow disagreement.
Yeah.
They allow for you to ask questions and be curious. They also allow you to maintain your person. Your autonomy is still there.
Right.
You are an individual. Versus in a cult, like, you become part of the group.
Yeah.
Groupthink creeps in, and suddenly it's all about what the group wants, what the group needs.
Yeah.
Based on whatever the cult's ultimate goals are. What their ideologies and beliefs are.
Yep. Yeah. Very important key points, right? You can be yourself still.
Yeah, and there's no punishment with that.
Right. That's a big one. We're not going to punish you for being you. We're not going to punish you for questioning us or being curious.
Yeah, but it's an absolute no in a cult or some other high-control environment. We are the ultimate truth.
Right. So what are some red flags in a cult or thinking that you might be manipulated or coerced in one of these groups?
Yeah, I think kind of going back to some of the key characteristics of a cult in general, going back to some sort of charismatic leader, I think the extreme devotion you see for this leader, big red flag. You know, that the leader's always right. Any sort of criticism or dissent is strictly forbidden. It could cause a whole lot of issues for you.
Yeah. There's a lot of fear-based control in that, too, that members are told that bad things will happen to them if they leave. And this can range from it being a high-control religion into a high-control non-religious cult from, all right, you are going to hell if you leave this group, or you're nothing without us.
Yeah, your life is ruined if you leave. Yeah.
You're nothing without us. You will have nothing.
Yeah. And as somebody who at that point likely has already dwindled down their support outside of the group, that's a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
What am I outside of this?
Do I want to be alone?
Yeah, because that's terrifying.
Yeah. I mentioned that love bombing earlier. The lots of flattery and affection early on to really create that dependency on the group.
Yeah, and initially, again, it feels great.
Yeah.
Wow, these people get me. Yeah. I feel so special.
I am so seen.
Yeah. But like you said, it creates that dependency. Okay, now I'm relying on these people. They were meeting my needs.
Yeah. And that leads directly into cutting off your friends and family, the people that you care about, and independent information sources. So any other way you might have been getting information, that is taken away.
Yeah, because then you see alternative truths, which aren't what the cult wants.
Right.
It's not what the ideology is.
Right.
That's not allowed because it's not the truth.
Right. Yeah, and using that guilt and shame as a tool. Talk about that, using those things as a tool.
Yeah, it's like once you've built up that sense of connection and dependency, you're special, you belong here. Now it's time to play by the rules. And if you don't, we're going to make you feel unworthy. If it's a religion, we're going to make you feel sinful. We're going to make you feel like you owe this group something. We brought you in. You owe us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've welcomed you with open arms. How could you do this?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah. How could you go against us in any way, shape, or form?
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of financial or labor demands sometimes, right? They want money. They want you to work for free or to recruit other people.
Yeah, it really goes back to that groupthink mentality of, okay, it's no longer just about me.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the group.
Mm-hmm.
The group needs a way to survive financially. The group needs to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
You're a part of that labor force now.
Yeah.
You just do it.
It's for the good of all.
It's for the good of all.
Mm-hmm. Talking about changing rules in goalposts, right? The expectations shifting
Yeah,
constantly.
but they're not stable.
Yeah.
Which can feel really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you were pulled in for the sense of, often they seem very clear and coherent and have a goal. You're like, wow, this feels so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly expectations are not what they were at the beginning.
Right.
And that they change often.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't question that.
Right.
You have to go along with it.
Right. Well, and then members feel like they just can never do enough.
Yeah. There's always something new.
Always.
Yeah. Why aren't you participating enough? Why aren't you doing this thing?
Yeah. Well, last time we talked about cognitive dissonance as well, so that ties right in here with cults encouraging members to ignore inconsistencies of logic. So things that logically made sense to you before, really digging into that doesn't fit with our narrative. Here's why.
Yeah, of having like an explanation for these things or having some quick way to be like, oh, that it's not true and it's for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so it builds up this like tolerance almost in people in these groups of, okay, like I believed in this one thing before pretty strongly.
Mm-hmm.
I feel this sense of discomfort with the reality that this group is trying to paint.
Yeah.
Yet this group has done all these things for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm relying on this group pretty much for everything at this point.
Yeah.
Can I put that aside? Okay, like maybe I should believe it.
Yeah.
They're telling this to me.
All of these other people believe it. It
All
has
of
to be
these-
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all trying to convince me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the only people I'm around.
Yep. Well, like we talked about with the social media, if that is all you're seeing, if that is all you're hearing, that feels very true.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, like groupthink. Okay, everyone's thinking this way? Great, I will too.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of, there's this one study I saw. It was a social experiment where they had a bunch of participants in a room and everyone except the actual subject was in on it. So it was a group experiment.
Sure.
With 3 different pencils that were different lengths.
Okay.
And they had the other people who were supposedly participants say which one was the longest, and they intentionally chose the wrong one. And it was after 5 of the participants said that, the person who was the actual participant would go along with the group, even though they knew it was the wrong answer.
Wow.
I think it speaks volumes to the power of group influence.
Right, right. That I can't even trust what I am seeing or hearing because it is so far off from what my group is saying, what these people that I relate to are saying.
So people stop trusting their own judgment.
Yeah.
Even though if it had just been them in that room, they absolutely would have said something different.
Yeah. It is wild.
Yeah. So it's, going back to information sources, it's then group-approved sources only. Outsiders, again, are threats. If it's not given the stamp of approval, you are dead to me. This isn't true. This isn't right.
Yeah. How dare you?
How dare you? It's so tricky.
Yeah. Well, in the way that we're describing these things, it sounds like who would do that? Like, who would join one of these groups? But I think folks would be surprised. Just the people that are preyed upon. They know the type of people who are going to be more likely to join some of these groups.
Yeah, like oftentimes it's people in vulnerable positions in life,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're going through some sort of like, big transition, maybe they lost their job, maybe they moved, maybe something big happened. The thing with these groups that draws people in, kind of like I said earlier, is they speak to deep human needs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, belonging, purpose, I think purpose especially,
Yeah.
clarity,
Mm-hmm.
you know. It gives these people what they need,
Right.
allegedly.
Right. And finding people with low self-esteem or in a space of transition or feeling like I'm not sure that I really know who I am. I'm making sense of the world.
Yeah, when people aren't exactly sure of their identity yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
we've got an answer for you.
Yeah.
You could be this.
Yeah. That's often people who are going off to college for the first time,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what is my life outside of living with my caregivers that I've been with my whole life.
Yeah, really figuring it out for the first time
Mm-hmm.
of, okay, like, who am I outside of this space?
Yeah.
And once you're in it, even if you're thinking about leaving,
Yeah.
it becomes, again, who am I if I'm not a part of this?
Right.
Like, I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah. Well, we've talked quite a bit about the groupthink and how it really contributes to the loss of that individual identity or independent thought, but I think there's a lot more points to go along with that. So bringing back the groupthink and how it discourages questioning or challenging the dominant narrative. And when you are expressing doubts, you're shamed, you're silenced, you're ostracized, you could be kicked out completely,
Yeah.
told that you do not belong, you are not one of us.
Yeah, and that has a toll on people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oftentimes that guilt is internalized. People end up feeling unworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even if part of them is hesitant about this group or has questions, more often than not, they'll seek forgiveness or
Mm-hmm.
approval. How can I continue to prove to you that I'm loyal?
Mm-hmm. We also talked about the echo chamber with social media, so that piece also reinforces beliefs of that high control group.
Oh, absolutely. If everyone thinks it, it must be true.
Mm-hmm.
If
It
that's
must
all I'm
be.
saying, it must be true.
Mm-hmm.
Why else would I be seeing it?
Yeah. And I imagine that has to feel good for some people who feel like they have to make decisions all of the time that, okay, all of these people are just, they know the way. I can
Yeah.
just be here. I don't have to expend a lot of mental energy. It just feels good that they're helping me.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about, I think there's so much mental burden just existing as a human today.
Truly.
I mean, we have to make a decision every single second of every single day.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
It really is.
Couple that with not knowing who you are, not knowing what your purpose in the world is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when people say, hey, we've got you, we know what to do, we've got this outline
Excellent.
for you.
I am
Perfect.
in.
I'm in. Yeah, and I think that also just goes to show, like, people are more susceptible than we think. I think a lot of us would like to think that we're infallible to this. Oh, I would never join a cult.
Yeah.
And yet we both just said, oh, wow, that sounds so nice.
That sounds great.
That sounds great.
I had to take a mental break for a little bit.
Yeah. Except it doesn't end up being a little bit.
Right.
It ends up being sometimes forever. Some
Yeah,
people never
lifelong.
leave.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of folks who have children and continue to raise families in this.
Yeah.
Envisioning high control religions.
Yeah.
That is not new. That has been
Yeah.
around forever.
Yeah. I think you make a great point with that, too, of people who are born into these.
Yeah.
Like, some people have never known a life outside of a cult.
Mm-hmm. They don't know the difference.
Yeah. So imagine the sense of dissonance for them if they receive any sort of outside news that
Right.
isn't meshing with what they've been taught literally their whole life.
Right. Right. And when people leave, say they're living on a compound with a whole community of people, and they leave that quote unquote safe space and go out into the world, how overwhelming do you think that is?
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, like, imagine as an adult walking into what just in general American society looks like today from an isolated
Right.
era. It would be insane. It's already a lot for...
It is a lot. Living through it every day. I
Yeah.
cannot imagine just being like
plopped in the middle of it.
Like,
Brand
what
new.
is happening?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to that place where it's all figured out.
Exactly.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And to add to that, a lot, people who join them as an adult or, weren't raised in it. You have people you can try to amend things with, build bridges if you leave. That's not the case with people who are raised in it. Everyone is there. You literally have nothing outside of that.
Yeah. So when people do leave, they make that hard choice to say, okay, I'm going to leave life as I knew it and the people there and try and live my own life.
Yeah.
What is that like for people?
Gosh, it takes an immense amount of courage. Obviously adapting to what reality seems like outside of that is a huge adjustment. But then also struggling with, how was I manipulated so significantly? How could I have believed all of that?
Yeah. Good. Then internalizing the sense of, what exactly was I thinking? What is wrong with me?
Yeah, what's wrong with me? You carry that with you.
Yeah. So trying to renegotiate what your identity is on your own sounds really scary.
Yeah, it's an extremely daunting task. Especially if you don't know anyone. You haven't had any experience of what traditional society tends to be like. Okay, like, what is a career going to look like? What do I do for work? How do I meet people?
Yeah.
What are the kind of people I even want to be around?
Do these people want to be around me?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that you have to filter through. It takes more courage than I could even imagine.
Yeah. Especially in the high control groups where they cut you off entirely. Yeah. There's some that maybe you'll have some correspondence with family members, but you're not quite welcome in that world anymore. But then there's the other more extreme views of, okay, if you leave, we're done.
Yeah.
And imagining how that feels for someone of, okay, my family was willing to let me walk away and never speak to me again because I chose to do XYZ. I chose to go to college.
Yeah. Like, we would feel for that person. And yet, I don't think necessarily people who leave cults are given the same grace or compassion.
Yeah.
Of, you chose that.
Yeah.
Like,
right. So they go from being shamed inside the group to being shamed out in general society, too.
They can't win.
No.
Yeah.
So, furthering that isolation.
Yeah. Of, okay, like, I guess I'm just lonely.
Yeah. This is just my life now.
This is my life. Like, maybe I don't believe in everything that this group has to say, but what is my life outside of it?
Yeah. That sounds incredibly overwhelming, thinking about all of the identity confusion and maybe even feeling a loss of purpose.
Yeah, because oftentimes that's one of the reasons you joined to begin with, is maybe you felt confused or didn't have a clear direction, and suddenly a path opened up, and wow, I feel really connected to this.
Yeah.
And then that's gone.
Yeah. Or being a kid growing up in that, being taught that this is your purpose.
Yeah. And then leaving that. Okay, if that was my purpose, what now?
Yep. I mean, lots of folks spend years or their entire lives that their entire identity is tied to this group. And that makes it really hard to know who they are outside of that.
Yeah.
So often asking themselves, who am I if I'm not a part of this? And okay, I know I don't agree with that, but what do I believe now?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, it's hard. So obviously if you choose to leave one of these places, there's a lot of work on your end to get to a better space.
Yeah.
Because often it is you, just you at first.
Yeah.
So how do you rebuild a sense of self and identity outside of this space?
Mm-hmm.
How do you engage with the information and the media that you consume outside of that space? How do you decide what's in line with you or not?
Mm-hmm.
What feels true to you or not?
Right.
When you've had somebody telling you this whole time, oh, this is the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in saying this is the truth and those other people don't know the truth, it really instills really deep fears of the outside world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Kind of what you had said earlier of like that sense of punishment. If you leave or something happens, you assume that the world is a bad place.
Yeah. Yeah. So, having clients that have left high control religions, we know that lots of them experience signs and symptoms of PTSD.
Oh, absolutely.
Lots of nightmares.
Yeah.
Anxiety. Always believing something bad is going to happen.
Yeah. And I think the guilt piece too. All of them carry guilt, just about.
And shame.
Yeah. And it takes a long time for people to undo that.
It does. It does.
Because it takes time for it to be built.
Yeah. Well, and especially if it's a child who's grown up in this high control religion, all of your entire life has been built on this thing so far.
Yeah, your
So
blueprints for
understandably,
everything.
it's going to take some time to untangle and unwind some of those things and sort out what you feel is true for you.
Yeah, and I think it's hard sometimes because I feel like people have expectations that, oh, I should be better by now. I should have this figured out by now.
Absolutely.
And that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
It took a while for this to be wired into you. It's going to take a while to undo that.
Yeah. Yeah. Truly.
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody who's been in a high control group or a cult for many years or somebody who grew up in it, that you were a part of something for a long time.
Yeah. Something that was extreme and rigid and punitive, fear-based.
Right.
A lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a while to feel safe again.
Right. Yeah.
Because, again, once you leave on your own, that's not immediate safety.
No.
In fact, you might feel more stressed out and anxious and afraid. Because now you're
maybe some of the things that they said were true.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I actually am safe being outside of that.
Yeah. Well, like, how do you know?
You don't.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah. Not a great feeling.
No. And I'm laughing, but it is not funny. I'm like, got chills saying that, so it makes me it just feels overwhelming, and like so much in my brain cannot even comprehend the enormity of those decisions and that fear instilled.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's just wild.
I feel like we say that a lot, but really.
Really, truly, it is.
It is. It is. So for some of those folks who are leaving, how are some ways that someone might regain their sense of self and critical thinking after they do make that brave step to leave?
Yeah. So obviously, whether it's a return to society or it's your first time, like you were raised in this group, finding things that differ from that group, whether it's books or documentaries or people, of finding things that are diverse from what you had been told, what you had been taught.
Yeah.
Of, okay, can I look at this stuff and decide what feels right to me, what seems true? Can I talk to people and get perspective outside of this group?
Yeah.
For people who have had a lived experience very different than my own.
And I think one of the things that is very understated is the ability to make decisions.
Yeah. I mean, it's so difficult when you more or less had to go with what the group wanted.
You never had to think about it.
Yeah. And then suddenly, you have to make all the decisions.
Right. Again, overwhelming.
Yeah.
But being able to start small, make a very small choice, and feeling confident in, okay, I did the right thing.
Yeah.
I know I can do the right thing, so I can move forward and make the next right choice for me.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of this idea of like, if, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You have to take it at your own pace.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just get there super fast. You gradually build up to it. You know, if I said I wanted to go run a marathon and I have absolutely no experience running, it's
not
going
gonna
to happen anytime soon.
No.
You have to build up to that. You have to feel more confident in your abilities. Same with this.
Yeah. And if someone makes a big decision and it turns out not being right, that doesn't mean that everything that you did was wrong.
Yeah. So being able to find that middle ground, almost, which can be a challenge when you are in a group that was very extreme.
Yeah.
It's black and white. It's right or wrong.
And I feel like that's challenging in the best of terms.
Oh, it is.
But learning how to make your own decisions for the first time, or regaining your sense of autonomy to make decisions again, envisioning making that mistake feels really scary too.
Yeah. And so I think something that can help is like connecting with your own values outside the group. What feels important to me?
Yeah.
You know, reflect on the things that the group taught you. What are the teachings? Do any of these feel somewhat, do I still feel connected to any of those? Do I feel connected to anything new? You know, am I observing media and I see positive attributes that I would love to have in myself? You know, a lot of times I'll ask that to a client of, okay, like, who are some people in your life? Who are some characters you see on TV that, you know, that you look up to, and why?
Yeah. Who do you admire?
Yeah, who do you admire? And you can pick it apart from then of, okay, they're honest. They're dependable. They're X, Y, and Z value of, okay, how do I instill that in my own life, regardless of a decision I make?
Right. Yeah. And people who have not spent their entire lives in this, who are not born into it, but spend some time there and then leave, trying to rediscover things that you once enjoyed. Yeah,
of whether that was a hobby that you liked, music you used to listen to, activities you used to do with people. It can help you narrow down what your personal preferences are now.
Yeah.
Because although not all of that may still be what you enjoy, it gives you a starting point.
Yeah.
Right.
And imagining not having a starting point for other people also sounds incredibly overwhelming of, where do I even begin here?
Yeah. I mean, it can feel hopeless almost of, wow, I really had nothing. I don't know what to do.
Right.
So just starting small. Choose one thing.
Yep. Try it out.
Yeah. See if you like it. If you don't, there's about 10 billion other things you can try in this world.
Right. Yeah. Well, you mentioned music, so that's the same.
Oh,
for
yeah.
that.
I mean,
there's so much variety.
Yeah. You will find something.
Yeah. It's rare that there are folks who cannot find music that they enjoy.
Absolutely. I don't think I've met a single soul.
Oh, I have, but it was very strange. Very strange.
Yeah.
I was like, huh.
Yeah.
How does your brain work? I don't get it. I feel like that's another episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
But
we talk all day about how music connects to memory and emotion.
Oh, it's so powerful. Again, a great spot for people to start connecting with themselves.
Absolutely.
What is making me feel some type of way? What kind of music? Why?
Yeah. Digging in. Yeah, absolutely. It's also really important to process the emotions and the potential trauma that they've experienced.
Oh, yeah. And know that, like, it's okay to experience, like, all of the unpleasant emotions that you may be feeling. The anger, the sadness, regret for having been a part of it or joining. Even missing it.
Yeah, having that sense of nostalgia of missing your old life.
Yeah.
Missing people.
I guarantee you not all of it was horrible. There were people you genuinely connected with. There were parts of it that drew you in to begin with.
There was a reason that you were there.
Yeah. It wasn't like you were just forced there against your will.
Right.
But there were things that drew you in.
Yeah. Journaling can be really helpful.
I love journaling.
Love journaling. helping process those very complex emotions and ideas that are swirling around in your head. There's so much power getting them to paper or typing them out even.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, obviously journaling can feel a little messy like that, but I think it also shows how many emotions you can hold at the same time, how many complex things can happen at once. And I think it also helps train you for more of that middle ground of, okay, it doesn't have to just be one thing or another. There's like so much more it could be.
Yeah. And that gray and ambiguity feels really uncomfortable too.
Yeah, but just like you were able to tolerate the dissonance you felt the more you were in that space, kind of the opposite can happen. Like you can learn to feel comfortable with like
not knowing.
Yeah.
That's, again, scary for people on the best of terms. Of not knowing feels really scary.
Yeah.
So being a part of that group where they seem to know all the answers feels good.
Yeah. And, I just had a thought when you mentioned the not knowing piece of, like, once you're out of this and you start seeing maybe all of the tactics they were using, the manipulation of how did I not know? Because it seemed like, okay, like, they seem confident, they seem whatever, they have all the answers. And then suddenly everything that you felt was true, that you felt so convicted in, is just not it.
Right.
How could I be led to believe that? How could I be manipulated?
Yeah.
I think it's important for these people to remember that it doesn't make you weak.
No.
That happened. It makes you human.
Yeah.
That we're all susceptible to it.
And we are all wired for connection.
We are. And cults prey on that.
They do. They do. Key component for sure. Now, support. Support is really important when people exit these types of groups.
Absolutely. If you joined the group and weren't raised in it, finding at least one trusted person from, what that group would have called the outside world,
right,
can make a world of difference. Of, okay, like, this is one person I can be safe with.
Yeah. Well, and for that person, that is their safe person. So if you have a friend who has left one of these high control groups, instead of asking things like, how could you believe that? It does seem sometimes like, okay, you were so easily manipulated. But remaining curious and empathetic of, okay, these things happen to you. Something happened to make you believe that. So remaining curious about their experiences without judgment.
I think the non-judgment piece is so critical. They are already doing enough judgment on their own. They don't need it from you.
Yeah. And introduce your friends who have left these high control groups to new communities. What are some things that you do?
Yeah, especially
Bring them
if
in.
You're the person that they trust.
Yeah.
Oftentimes your friends tend to be mirrors of you in some capacity. So chances are they might get along with your friends too.
Yeah.
They might enjoy being a part of a new community that gives them a different taste.
Yeah.
Okay, I can find community in other ways that aren't rigid, that aren't fear-based.
Yeah.
That
some sports leagues, going to play trivia. Like
literally anything can be community.
Yeah. And having that sense of community and regaining that sense of belonging can feel really powerful too. Yeah.
Because, again, oftentimes that's something that led a person to a cult to begin with, is there's an absence of these things.
Yeah. Also keeping in mind that casual, everyday conversations can be powerful reminders of normalcy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously there's already their own self-stigma and judgment of, I feel on the outside, I was the person who joined the cult. I have this experience. But at the end of the day, you're still a person.
Yeah.
You can engage with these people.
Yeah.
It's okay to have just normal conversations. It's really healing a lot of times.
Yeah.
I'm a part part of this group, and it
Yeah.
doesn't have to have any strings attached to it.
We don't have to talk about that specific thing that the group always wants to talk about.
Yeah, and my identity isn't tied to it.
Right. Right. We can disagree.
Yeah, and it's okay.
It's okay.
There's no threat.
Oh, also, we are therapists, so we are a little bit biased, but therapists who do specialize in religious trauma or cults can be really helpful, and things like group therapy with folks who have also been through those experiences can be really helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had clients who have felt alone. No one else gets this.
Yeah.
Somebody else who has been susceptible to a high control environment might have a pretty good idea of what you've been through. Maybe not the exact nuances.
Right. Right. But similar.
Yeah. And that can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, knowing that recovering from all of the trauma and damage that could have been done to these people is a process, and ongoing support is really important for long-term healing.
Yeah. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You have to take your time.
Yeah, yeah. So we are looking at cult mentality and thinking about preventing falling into toxic relationships or toxic ideologies. What lessons can we apply from all that we just talked about?
Yeah, I think some of the things that you see in cults, like, they show up in other things, like you said. Whether it's, like, a toxic relationship or political movements, your workplace culture, online communities.
Yeah.
I think we see it in so much more than just cults. And so being able to ask yourself some questions to clarify, okay, am I falling into manipulation? Is there anything that's pulling me towards something that's toxic or unhelpful? I think, number one, am I allowed to disagree in this space?
Am I allowed to be myself?
Yeah. Is fear or shame being used to control me?
Really trusting your gut.
Yeah.
If something feels off, don't ignore it. Those manipulative, really charismatic leaders often pressure people into overriding those instincts.
Yeah. Again, you stop trusting your own judgment. Yeah. I think kind of going off of that, questioning people who are demanding loyalty blindly or discouraging your own independent thought.
Yeah.
Again, a healthy community is going to allow you to keep your autonomy. It's encouraged.
Yeah, the respectful disagreement and open discussion are welcome.
Yeah. It helps foster your critical thinking, which is not what you see in cults. They don't want you to think critically. They want you to think the way the group thinks.
Yeah. And kind of diversifying some of your interests, the people that you hang out with.
Yeah.
Things that you do.
Yeah. Also, again, kind of tying back into last episode, the media that you're consuming.
Yep. Yep. And it's always difficult for everyone setting personal boundaries.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that's trying to control your time, trying to control your thoughts, trying to control your emotions, take a step back and evaluate.
Yeah. Even if it's painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this going to harm me in the long run?
Yeah. Oh, I do think it's important to note that there are some parallels between cult behavior and some more mainstream social or political movements.
Yeah. I think that's especially relevant to today's world, unfortunately. I mean, just think about certain political figures, we won't name names right now, but who kind of use cult-like devotion, overriding logic, dismissing scandals, creating a sense of divine leadership. It's scary.
Yeah. And lots of those political movements frame those outsiders as being dangerous, just like in cults.
Yeah.
And it makes it really easy to dehumanize people who don't believe what you believe.
And I think that's dangerous.
That is very dangerous. That is very dangerous.
What happens to the world when we stop seeing people as people?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think, obviously, when there's that us versus them, that creeps in. It's hard to have any sort of constructive dialogue or really any sort of communication with people who are seen as the opponents, the opposing side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and ostracizing those people who are on the other side.
Yeah.
And dehumanizing makes it easier to, all right, I'm going to publicly humiliate that person.
Yeah.
I'm going to attack them online and lead a smear campaign. There can be real life consequences.
Oh, absolutely. And going back to just media in general, there are certain pockets of media. There's propaganda literally everywhere, whether you're aware of it or not. There's social pressure. I mean, there are all sorts of things that can trap you into, a political worldview.
Yeah. It really discourages that critical thinking and challenging.
And again, that's so scary.
Well, when a group really demands that you conform entirely, and when they punish dissent, it really discourages free thinking and creates a lot of fear-based loyalty. We are afraid of all of these things that these leaders have made seem very scary.
Yeah. How scary are they actually? How real are they actually?
Yeah. Continuing to have conversations with real humans is so important. Understanding each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you see it in political settings. You can see it in all sorts of group settings. Again, whether that's like your workplace or relationships, you can be manipulated in any sort of group setting.
For sure.
What are ways we can protect ourselves from that?
We've talked about it a couple of times today, and our whole last episode was really devoted to diversifying your information sources. Avoid getting all of your opinions, your beliefs, your news from one single source or echo chamber. Intentionally seek out other sources of information.
Yeah. Even if it's time-consuming or exhausting. That it's so, so important. And I think at the end of the day, really just being able to take a step back, evaluate your beliefs, evaluate where they're coming from. Are they yours? Were they imposed by some group that you're a part of?
Yeah. Again, encouraging discussion and debate that is healthy, rooted in trying to understand the other person and not in attacking or trying to convince them that what you think or believe is correct.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a huge point of not imposing your beliefs on the other person.
Yeah.
Talking for understanding. Can we see where we're coming from, even if we don't agree?
Yeah. Just doing your best to remain curious.
Yeah.
And open.
Yeah. And that it's also okay that not all that you pick your battles. Some people aren't going to be open for a conversation. You don't have to participate in that if you don't think it's going to be productive.
No. And equally important that when you know there are people who are unsafe to have those conversations with, it's okay to set those boundaries of, this is not a thing I'm willing to discuss with you.
Yeah.
It is not going to be productive. It is not going to be safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We talked about a lot.
We did.
today.
Oh, yeah.
As a reminder, not all groups who are passionate about things are cults, but those cult-like tactics can appear anywhere, from politics to workplaces to activism and even relationships.
Yeah, and I think, again, at the end of the day, key to staying free from manipulation is maintaining your personal autonomy, keeping diversity of thought, and also like your ability to question authority without fear.
Yeah.
That's gone. There's some red flags.
And if a person or a group is demanding in complete loyalty, if they isolate you from other dissenting opinions or they use fear to control you, it's a huge sign to step away.
And that's okay.
Yeah. even though it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Whew.
Big conversation today.
Big conversation. Anything else you think worth mentioning about cults today?
I think we really covered it.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
agree.
from the typical characteristics to red flags to the challenges of leaving and how to rebuild after leaving.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And showing that support if you are a person who is supporting someone who has left that.
Yeah, it's so important. Obviously, it's not your entire burden to carry,
Right.
but show up for that person.
Yeah,
Be open.
absolutely. Awesome. Well, it was wonderful talking about cults with you.
As
and
always.
We will be back with another episode soon.
Yeah, I'll look forward to it.